Michael, welcome to Disabled and Proud. How are you today?
I am fine, thank you, Brooke. I'm very fine indeed, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to talking to you today because I think there are so many things that you can speak about that will mean a lot of other people will learn from. And I think that that's what this is all about. It's a
Yep.
little bit of learning, a little bit of fun, maybe some good humor. So hopefully we'll get that out of today.
Hopefully so. Hopefully so. Yeah. Hopefully so.
So, the first question that I ask every single person who comes on this podcast
Yeah.
is, how do you refer to your disability?
Well, I don't actually say that I'm just disabled. I say that I'm actually impaired and that I'm only disabled by the environment that
Mm-hmm.
I'm in. So I don't want to be defined as Michael Grimmett with cerebral palsy. I just would rather be called either physically impaired or just a disabled person, really.
I think it's so interesting. And the reason that I ask everybody that question
Yeah,
is because we all refer to disability incredibly individually.
exactly, and that is absolutely fine. But yeah, it's just where I always see myself. I don't really want to be defined by whatever impairment I have.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest. I didn't even know anything about cerebral palsy until about 18, 20. But now I don't need to know all the ins and outs of it. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just prefer Michael, who is impaired.
Yeah. And interestingly, cerebral palsy, what did that mean that childhood was like for you? Because as you just said, you only started reading up about it when you were 18,
Yeah.
20. So I'm wondering what the years before that were like.
Well, my dad used to work abroad in Saudi Arabia, so
Hmm.
I had a rather unique um, experience. So
Yeah.
I actually went to, dare I say it, mainstream school
Hmm.
in Saudi Arabia, and when I came back to the UK when about 8 or 9, I had to go to an all disabled person school. I found that transition quite difficult because I was used to like this big mainstream school and
Yeah.
lots of like friends and stuff. But when I came back, it was I had a only had a class of about 10 other people. Yeah, it was um quite difficult. I didn't really ever want to be at the school that I was at. I didn't have any choice. And then finally, I got given a choice when I was 15 because
Hmm.
the Discrimination Act came into force. I'm showing my age now, and that meant that I was given the opportunity of possibly attending a mainstream school, but I decided to stay where I was and then just do another year at a mainstream college.
Hmm.
And when I went on to mainstream college, that was when I really kind of how I developed as a person. You know, they
Hmm.
first the college they treated me equally as every other student. So I still got told off for being naughty. I was always late for everything, but I'm actually surprised that I was on time for tonight. But anyway, from then on, I went on to university. I got my degree. When I see a young disabled person now, I think it's great that they're going to, they've got a choice of schools to go to, and that also means that non-disabled students also get the chance to basically interact with disabled people at a younger age rather than
Yeah.
segregated and all that kind of thing. So I think we have come a long way. Yeah, but yeah, it was quite interesting during my younger years. because all my friends were at a mainstream school and I was at a different school. It was difficult to like maintain friendships, and you've got that old kind of banter you have on the way home, or I kind of missed out on that.
I think it's so interesting about how, firstly, that you went to school in Saudi Arabia, which like absolutely blows my mind, because like it's such
It
a
was an
wild,
amazing experience though.
yeah,
Um,
exactly, like such a
I
wild
loved it.
experience, and also
Yeah,
a really unique experience as well, because not a lot of people necessarily get that. And then
yeah,
having to move back to the UK in and of itself is like, it's just a challenge anyway, but also completely
yeah,
changing the scholastic system that you were
yeah,
used to, you know, going from mainstream and as you said, to then like a like a disabled school, or
yeah,
for a school for people with disabilities.
yeah,
And that whole experience must have just been like a completely, well, it's a completely different setup, isn't it? It's a completely different
yeah,
way of life, because you've gone from one thing to another, and the two weren't
yeah.
necessarily linked beforehand, but now they are through you, and that must have been like
And
such an interesting experience.
and I think that is also where my first for travel has come from as well. From
Yeah.
being abroad in my younger years and being able to socialize and learn like the different cultures and that kind of thing. So yeah, 'cause I also went to Thailand and did that when I was younger. Yeah, it is, and it is important to always challenge people as well.
Mm.
When I came back, I did find it really, really hard to adjust to an all disabled person's school.
Yeah.
I was just used to like having so many friends and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I just think the whole experience, from moving countries, moving schools, and then moving schools again at age 15, which is like a formative time for anybody, regardless of whether you're disabled or
Yeah,
not, to then move again, super formative years, super awkward years for absolutely everybody. I don't care what you say, like every teenager is an awkward human being, regardless of
yes,
whether they think that they're not, like they are or they aren't, they are. And like you genuinely couldn't pay me enough money to go back and be a teenager again. So again, it's like a lot of what seem like on the outside, not necessarily always the biggest transitions, but actually for
yeah,
you, or you know, or personally, they could be massively big transitions, because you're going from one situation to another, and then another one again, and all of them, you are still your same in yourself at your core, but the environment around you is changing, and that means obviously being a disabled person, like the environments again are completely different. They're never going to be the same, and
yeah.
having to adapt and adjust to that during those formative years must have just been like
But I,
mind-blowing.
but I also think that also stood me in good stead for my later years. I was,
Yeah.
I was able to like, adjust to different things that I've had to
Mm-hmm.
like, be like, me living independently away from my mum and dad. I've always been a bit independently minded anyway, or someone
Mm-hmm.
say stubborn. But I've always been like really quite even when I was 18, which I'm sure we'll get on to later, I decided that I wanted to employ my own support staff, and all
Mm-hmm.
disabled friends thought I was bonkers, to be quite honest, if I can say
Yeah.
that. They were like, oh my God, why do you do that for you? You're so young. And I'm like, no, I want to start this off now. And now
Yeah.
I see them in there kind of just starting their independent living journey now, and then some in their mid 30s, or but I've already had that 18 years of kind of like of that experience, and
Mm-hmm.
I've got this problem or that problem, or the actual person that I'm hiring, I'm finding it difficult, and they're like having to live it in their middle, late 30s, but I've already dealt with all those problems.
I think it is always fascinating when talking to people who have a disability, and then
Yeah,
they choose their career to also be somehow related to disability. And I'm wondering, how has your disability and the way that you've gone through life impacted your career choices and what you do now?
So I when I first started to have an interest in employing my own staff, it was called self-operated care support scheme. Awfully worded, but then they then changed it to direct payments, which is what is known as now, which is when you manage your own. Just in case people don't know, is when you get your money from the local authority, and then you manage your own care and support. So I decided to do that when I was at college. I only got about 10 hours a week. I had a really, really, really brilliant social worker. Her name was Barbara, a very social working name. And she said to me, um, she said to me, Michael, I can see you're a real passionate advocate. Go away and do whatever you want to do. But I can tell you that you will work for the company called Spectrum. You're crazy. I want to be an IT programmer. That was
Yeah.
where the money was. And anyway, so long story short, this disabled person called Robert came out to see me in 1999 to tell me about everything there was to know about payments and like what it was like, the pros and cons. And I thought, oh, this is awesome. It's another disabled person who's in his late 20s telling me how, like, the real life, how it is really not somebody who's not disabled, just, somebody who's been there, done it. He's made mistakes, he's made some good decisions, bad decisions. Long story short, I then went off to university. I couldn't get a job in the sector that I went for, and I ended up getting a job where about 10 years later, where Robert was who told me about direct payments. He then, I wouldn't say he gave me the job. I got it fair and square, but I then became a manager of a register of personal assistants. And then from there, I learned how everything that there is to know about access to work, direct payments, personal health budgets. And I just thought, well, I don't, this isn't what I really wanted as a career, but I'm really, well, without sounding too egotistical, I'm actually really, really quite good at it. So, and the actual, and then I can then help support others. But you are right; it is quite ironic that is around um, disability. But yeah, but I just and I've had a lot of setbacks myself. So relate those setbacks to people that I support. So, for example, one of my biggest setbacks, I had my direct payments. Um, they local authorities they don't use the C word, which is cut. That I will say reduced um,
Yeah.
by about 50% and the social worker came into my house. I wasn't very happy with what happened. And to be quite honest, I was really, really, really upset. I just thought I'm going from that figure to that figure in like 1 week. And then this is going to affect my life.
Yeah.
And luckily, I had Robert again, who I knew. I just rang him up and he was like, right, okay, this is really obviously disappointing and you can cry about it if you want, but how are you tackle it if this was the person that you're representing? Long story short, I represented myself. Robert was my advocate. It was role reversed.
Yeah.
I helped to get my budget back, and I then moved on to have a personal health budget. But I think it's about the people that you surround yourself when you have a disability or impairment. for me, for a single person, the biggest thing that I didn't get taught, I think, is to have resilience. And that means
Hmm.
doesn't necessarily mean that anybody doesn't have it, doesn't mean that they're weak or anything like that. I don't mean like that, but I mean still people on unfortunately, and we can debate this all day, we we do have we do suffer a lot or setback. Either your care staff might let you down, or
Yeah.
you know access to work will reduce your funding, your social care will, and therefore we don't really kind of. I always say that I'm a disabled person. I'm not a naturally born employer, but I've only got two options. I either employ people or have a care agency. And for me, I don't really want a care, care agency. So by
Yeah.
default, that's my only choice. So
Mhm.
I always say that I see all these training opportunities now for disabled people and employers, and but there's nothing around kind of resilience. Like for example, last night I had a phone call half an hour before my PAs were meant to come in to work. Their car had broken down on the way,
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to come and see me or to
Hmm.
help me get me into bed. And it's about how you kind of deal with that situation now. And if
Yeah.
my my brother lives 100 miles away, and my mum and dad are now a bit too old now to help me out.
I think it's so interesting what you said about how you're not a natural born employer, but these are your choices. And I think
Yep.
that's something that everybody kind of needs to take on, is that actually you're almost forced into this role if you require help, because not all disabled people require forms of help, but if you do require help, that is you're suddenly all of a sudden forced into this role where you do become an employer. And actually you're right, how do you handle that situation if someone just can't turn up or doesn't turn up, or like you had last night, someone
Yeah.
tires doesn't work and they just can't get to you? How do you handle these situations? And actually, it's a really important conversation to have, because on the surface, it doesn't seem like it's a massive deal. But actually, underneath, it is quite a big deal to teach disabled
Yep.
people resilience and how to do certain things by themselves. But on the flip side, also ask for that support, because a lot of people are afraid to ask for support because it can be seen as being weak. But actually, it's completely not that way at all.
No. And I think it's okay to ask for some support if you need it. But
Yeah,
I always think it's better to have it from another disabled person, which is what I'm a great advocate of peer support for. I think every bad choice you make, you kind of learn from it. I made tons of bad decisions when I was
yeah.
about 20, 21, 22.
Hmm.
You know, like employing people. Like, for example, I employ one of my best friends, and that's a definite no-no. You should never employ your best mate. So I will just say now that like we are not best friends now. Now, when you re reflect, I see that people like hire their like sisters or their brothers or their best friend, and they sit. I tell them like you need to think about that line where like and there is a line where it might be great because it's it's easy to be quite honest. I did it because it was easy, and then when it's easy, yeah, I found that most of the time it doesn't. Sometimes it does work, and fair to people who it does work for, but yeah, sometimes it just doesn't work, and then the actual effect of that is yeah, had a ricochet effect. Because then
Yeah.
my then other friends felt awkward around my best friend, so they then didn't become friends with him either, and it was all a bit meh, all a bit meh
Hmm.
as well. you know what, I'm never doing that again. I never have. But I had to make that mistake to learn from it.
I'd love to talk to you a bit about your disability and inclusion training that you do, because I think that this is such a fascinating topic, because so many companies ask for it and so many companies can get it wrong.
Yeah.
But there are some people who do it and some people who do it very well, and you are one of them. And I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about how that came about and what essentially you go in to talk about.
So it all came about because of Prezogate. So
I was waiting for this. I didn't know when to bring it up.
Here we go. So Prezogate is the reason why I went viral in 2021. Just for a little story, I was sat outside Prezzo. Other restaurants are available, but I was sat outside Prezzo and I wanted to go in. The ramp didn't fit the door. And long story short, I ended up having a pizza in the rain because the heavens open. I couldn't get in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I put my little 10-second video on Twitter, and overnight, like it was just bonkers, Brooke. It was just
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared for it, and looking back on it, I should have been a little bit more. Another mistake I made with it. I should have been a little bit more prepared. In those 10 seconds, you had me eating pizza in the rain. They had heaters bizarrely behind me. Then you had the rain ricocheting off the
Yeah.
the smoke, and but to be fair to Prezzo, they handled it really, really well. And through Spectrum, who I work for, we were given the opportunity to train them. And then from then on, I then went on to do talks in Wales and other places, and just around how you can include disabled people, and how we're not scary, and also how if we get it right, we're going to be a loyal community. I like to think I point out the obvious, but to non-disabled people, sometimes it's not obvious. Talk them through the social model and why I don't like certain charities. Dumb charities are fine, but I don't other charity model of disability, the undateables, for example, and I
Yeah.
want to say like, how do you make everybody watch one episode? I think it's talking up to me about how they think it's marketed, what is the impact of that program on them, men and women holding up signs saying that they are undateable. Would they like if that was a non-disabled person? Would that be acceptable? Kind of like those kind of things. So I'd like to do that. Have a few kind of videos and talk about the difference between accessibility and inclusion because they're different because you might be accessible, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you are inclusive. But I also say that disabled people, controversial, disabled people can make mistakes as well.
Yeah.
Right. So therefore, like Fredo gave me the example of they had an assistance dog that it is quite funny that stole a burger off the table next to them.
Yeah.
And the owner of the assistant dog refused to buy them a replacement burger.
Okay.
So I said, well, they're like, how would you deal with it? I went, I would just say, well, it's your dog. It ate the burger.
Yeah.
Just buy another burger. and they were like, you can't say that. I'm like, why not? If they knew that they were going to a restaurant, their poor dog is clearly hungry, so they should have
Yeah.
a bit more before they come. So therefore, eat out a nice little burger. Apparently, they even at the bun as well. I think this is what like equality should be like.
Mhm.
I said you can't have it both ways. Like I
Yes.
was in London the other day, and I was in a queue for to go into Westminster Abbey, and this man
Mhm.
came up to me and said, "Oh, do you want to skip the queue?"
Mhm.
And I was like, "But why?" Oh, because you're a wheelchair user. You're allowing me to skip the queue purely because I'm a wheelchair user.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't even raining. It was just sometimes, Brooke, in my younger years, I would take advantage of that. I don't really mind
Yeah.
admitting that. Some of the things that I did when I was younger, I now totally cringe at. But now I'm a bit older. I'm like, oh no, yeah, can't really do that now. But
But that in itself means that you've grown as a person. I think if you look back at yourself and look at back at like
yeah,
what younger you would do, and you're a bit like, oh God, and it does make you cringe, but maybe it makes you laugh a little bit as well. It just goes to show that you have grown as a person. And actually what I really liked about what you were just talking about going into companies and talking to them is particularly what you said about the undateables and particularly how it's marketed. Because for me, I when I watch or have watched that type of program, it's very much disability for entertainment purposes. And I think that that
yeah,
is very, very, I actually think it's incredibly problematic for a whole host of
yeah,
reasons.
yeah,
But something that I really take away from that is that that's the perception that people are who are non-disabled, who don't necessarily have all that much contact with disabled people, that is the
yeah,
experience that they're getting. And then from that it sets a precedence for how to treat disabled people,
yeah,
because that's the only like interaction, even though it's through media, that's the only interaction people are gaining.
yeah.
And that is
Exactly
so
right.
problematic because there are so many times on that TV show where things have been sensationalized, or people have been quite clearly wound up is maybe not the right word, but put into quite a stressful situation that causes them a lot of distress, and that is being shown as entertainment when actually it's
Yeah,
actually a really difficult watch, particularly if you are disabled, and also particularly if you understand the type of disability that is being portrayed at the point in time.
exactly.
It's just a hot, like as an entire concept, incredibly problematic. Like I personally hate it.
Yeah, I don't wanna like do this whole debate around the Rosie Jones documentary, but even that has split the whole disability community in like literally half.
Literally in half. There are
I know,
two camps.
I'm like, oh, well done. Now you just made my job like my own personal job of saying, oh, don't use that word.
Yeah.
Won't even say it, but don't use that word. And now you're using it on a mainstream TV show. Cheers for that. Thank you.
I'm
I,
so glad though that you said that about how it split the disabled community in two, because I was having this
yeah,
conversation with another disabled person who happens to be a really good friend
yeah,
of mine. And
yeah,
he said the exact same thing, that he has only seen two opinions of it. And there doesn't seem to be any wavering from either side of the fence.
no,
Like this is something that it's literally a parting of the Red Sea. Like Rosie Jones has somehow magically become Moses and has parted the Red
yeah,
Sea. And
yeah,
like the camps are not mixing. There's very, very stern viewpoints on both sides, both of which are completely applicable. And
yeah.
it's going to be one of those, this is going to be one of those things that I think is debated about for a very long time. It's not going to be
But
something that just goes away overnight.
it goes back to language, doesn't it? I
Yeah.
think the whole disability thing is when I start my sessions, I start with language. And
Mm-hmm.
companies always say to me, why is that your biggest section? Because I think language defines you as a society or as an organization. That if
Yes.
you get the language right, then you're going to get the whole ethos right. You're going to get everyone else
Yeah.
right. I could talk to you for 40 odd minutes about the social model of disability, but you want it to be tangible to the majority of people. I do have quite an interesting debate about even the word cripple, for example, that has also splitted the disability community a little bit as well.
Yeah.
And even with my better friends who I'm seeing on Friday, we have both very different opinions. She says that the disability community owns that word.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay for us to actually
To
use
use it.
it. But I would say that I wouldn't want anybody to shout it at me down the actual street, whether or not you're to say, why have it in the fair place? So that's only my own personal opinion. And also, I think it's important for you to know the actual history of the word. So it actually comes from the word creep. It has, relations to begging. In I just think language defines us, and it's quite important that disabled people, non-disabled people can get it right as much as they can, really. And recent events like a certain documentary has, shown it to be even more important, really.
Yes, because it's opened a can of worms that are not going to go back in the same can that they came out of.
I just about watched the whole thing, and she did have some good parts to it, but I just think it's just the title of it. It looks like potentially you're targeting a section of the disability community, potentially just using that title for your documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I was to say, Michael Grimmett, am I a going boulder-headed man? Then, then you probably think, oh, he's targeting at baldy-headed men not going boulder or something.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're using that word that is used in as recently as the 80s to describe people with certain impairments. I just think it was a bit silly, really. When we had in my day, it was Joey from Blue Peter. He had a speech impairment, and
Mm-hmm.
and therefore anybody with a speech impairment throughout their whole life during school called Joey. I don't think Blue Peter kind of discussed the issue, and and I think this is a similar thing where therefore oh, it's really, really good to have a program about disability, but they need to think about it a bit more, don't they, Brooke, really?
I think it's such an interesting one because I can understand all the hoops that were jumped through to first off even create this program, like the amount
Yeah,
of work that has gone into it to get it to where it needs to go, particularly on a mainstream channel, particularly at the time of day that it went on at.
yeah,
All the hoops that would have been jumped through to get that were absolutely astronomical, particularly for somebody with a disability, particularly highlighting the problems within the disabled community, because those conversations are not had and they're not something that we talk about very unless you are in the disabled community. You don't necessarily know the issues that are in the disabled community, and that's like most
yeah,
communities as well, but this is one that actually is inherently problematic for every single disabled person, regardless of what your disability is. Like you could have
yeah,
two completely different people who've got completely different disabilities and they're still affected by this.
yeah,
So on the one hand, I can completely understand all the work that went into creating this, because actually phenomenal amount of work, phenomenal amount of like cheerleading and pushing forward, and actually kind of quite progressive. However,
yeah,
on the flip side, exactly what you were saying about language, problematic. And you're so right, it's our use of language that really defines who we are and what we do and what we stand for. And it's just it is problematic because it split the disabled community so in half, and neither side, and I think maybe this is because we're disabled people, I don't know, but 9 times out of 10 most disabled people I know are defiant, to use a nice way of putting
yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
very defiant,
yeah,
and that means that neither side particularly want to listen to the other side's issues or the benefits of it, because each one believes wholeheartedly that their viewpoint on this is is the right one, because it's so personal. Even though it was like a very broad and generic topic, it's actually an incredibly personal one for most disabled people. So I think there's a lot to contend with surrounding it, and actually I'm kind of just taking a back seat from it at the minute and taking it all in, because I'm still formulating my own opinions, my own ideas, how I think and feel about it. But I'm very much with you that I think the use of language really defines who we are as people. And I'm a big believer in that, you know, as soon as you open your mouth, you're telling the world exactly who you are. And that goes down to your choices of words and your choice of language and how you speak. So what does that say? And is it a good way of saying what you want to say? Could other words have been used? Could other phrases, other choices of language, syntax, whatever, could that have been used? I don't know. I don't have any of the answers. These are all very much my own opinions.
Yeah.
But it's a fascinating one to kind of sit back and watch. Yeah. So moving on from this topic, because this is quite this topic could go. We could honestly have a whole podcast episode on this topic alone.
A whole podcast. Yeah.
But I like to ask everybody, do they have a piece of advice for a younger version of themselves, and what would it be?
I would say learn people management skills. I had to do it through experience, probably not the best way to do it. So when I first went into my first kind of visit to see somebody, in their office they had an Ian Drury poster, and it has stuck with me to this day. And it had this quote of disability isn't about being brave, it's about being organised. And I've always remembered that actual quote, because it is actually so true. People say, "Oh, you're so brave." I'm like, I'm not brave. I just have to be. I hate spiders, so therefore I'm definitely not brave. I think that people have to be so organised, and you do have to have a kind of crystal ball kind of thing. I built a kind of sixth sense where I know that things like with my support staff or with funding, where things might enter a tricky period, and it's about how you face that. Because I'm the worst person in the world at putting things off. So I will just put things off and maybe just scan BBC News or do something that means that I don't have to do it. I'm meant to be appealing a car parking fine, and I can guarantee you that I'll leave it to the last possible second to do it. But no, so I would just say it's about being organised, and then life is a lot better. And then what I mean is, you don't have to be organised by like keeping up a spreadsheet or anything, but you have to be organised with what you want to do with your life. I have what all of my staff and my friends say. I've got crackhead energy, which means that I am literally like everywhere. That I'm honestly now thinking about. I'm talking to you, but I'm thinking about what I want to swap somebody's shift during the weekend. That I've got all of that in my head.
Yeah.
My desk is always like piled up with paperwork, but somehow, but in my head, how I explain things to people is I'm mostly organised. I know who I want to have on my rota for next month. I know what I'm doing. I know who I am. But it might not be your way of being organised, Brooke, but it's my way. Do you think it's about also people should find their own way of being organised, really?
So, because we are disabled people, and we don't fit into this world societal norms, that's a fact. That's not just like a comment, that's like an actual fact. I wonder, what type of bizarre questions do you get surrounding your disability? Because Lord knows all disabled people get some form of weird and wonderful questions about their disability. And I was wondering, is there any in particular for you that come up and you either laugh when you hear it, or you think, oh my goodness, not this one again?
I don't really get that many myself. People who talk to my personal assistants rather than me. That's for two reasons, I think. That's like out of fear. That's like not ignorance, it's just lack of education. So the people who don't encounter disability incorrectly assume that you can't either communicate or do anything for yourself. I don't really get angry. I just say, oh, you just need to be a bit better educated. Then no, I don't. I did have one funny moment where I was at a supermarket. I won't name them. I was in the checkout, and the person behind me first they tapped me on the chair. Like, all right, you all right? Like, yeah, I just wanted to ask you. Do you want me to ask you a question? I thought, oh, you probably want to know why I'm in a wheelchair or something. And then very kindly went, do you know Dave? I went, Dave. No. Don't know Dave. Who's Dave? She went, what's your name? Michael. Michael. You must know Dave. I went, well, I do know some dumb Daves. You know, they give me a surname. Dave is quite a popular, name. There's even a TV station named after it. She went, Dave so and so. I went, no, I don't know him. She went, but you must know him because he's a wheelchair user as well. And I was like, do you know my mate, Catherine? She went, Catherine? No. Well, you must know her because she got auburn hair as well. And then the whole checkout people behind me were just laughing. But the actual person didn't really know what was funny. And that is what made it funny was I've been you've got to be quite quick-witted when you're a disabled person. There are two ways to think about it. You would be serious and be upset about it. And I think that all depends on your mindset as well. Because everybody had a bad day, Brooke. Whether or not you're disabled, not disabled, whatever you are, however you identify, you can have a bad day. So if I was having a bad day, that poor woman would have had her head ripped off by me, and she would have probably had a courgette that I had on my lap thrown at her, and I probably would have been arrested.
I only have one final question for you, Michael, but I've got to say I've really, really enjoyed today's chat. It's made me laugh in so many different areas, and I've had such a good time. My final question for you is, Michael, are you disabled and proud?
Definitely, I am proud of who I am, and yeah, I like to think that being disabled has defined me and actually bizarrely given me a career. But so it's alright, so it's not. There are some times where it's not so great, but generally I am disabled. I'm definitely proud.
Thank you so much for giving up your time this evening to be on the podcast. I have absolutely loved this chat, and I can't wait for people to hear it. Like, I think this is going to be a really brilliant episode. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much as well, Brooke.
Hey!